Hey sis!
Hey sis!
On today's episode of She Blaze, we're celebrating our 50th episode by recapping cannabis news ripped from the headlines over these last few years. And of course, we're bringing the hottest, latest topics in the industry this week.
Yes, and guess what?
Yes.
We're together!
We are together.
It took us a
Elbow dab.
I mean, actually, this is pretty close. We're still kind of getting used to being in the same space. But for 50th episode, absolutely needed to make sure that we had to make it special. And so this special episode we get to do together. That's why, I mean, I'm like watching you like I'm watching you on the TV screen. Yeah. That's why I turn my head like, okay, girl, yeah. Wear these glasses, yeah. So yes, hey, sis. And of course, nothing's changed. We got to start this week with my high of the week, high of the week. And my high of the week is actually work related. Well, everything is. This is work related. Let's be real.
You just like the work.
Okay, whatever. I'm an entrepreneur. Yes. So this week is work related as it pertains to the Portland, Oregon cannabis industry. I'm so excited to announce that the 2021 Social Equity and Educational Development, or SEED, grant fund. The application has been open since October 2nd, but this is that last week, and you know that's when people really start getting it in. And so we got $800K in total to give out in grants.
That's a lot of money.
It is, and it all came from cannabis tax revenue. And so the city of Portland, where I oversee the cannabis industry, is one of the only jurisdictions that recognizes that there needs to be some reparative and restorative justice as a result of cannabis prohibition. And so the cannabis tax revenue makes some sense, really needs to go back into those communities that were most affected by prohibition. And so that's what the SEED grant fund is. It's part of SEED initiatives. And this is the last week to apply. And the application is pretty easy, so I think folks can get in. It's only 3 pages. We really want summaries. We want the best ideas. You do not have to be a fully formed organization yet. It's something that you can build into your plan. We want new ideas, new initiatives, and we're prioritizing education, economic development, and entrepreneurship, and expungement or criminal justice related activities. If you have an idea, if you have a program that's already established, this is that grant fund for you.
Wow. Well, I'm totally jealous because obviously I would love to do something like that. Oh my goodness. You guys take notes and see how it's done. And I mean, to not even have a fully formed business and it's only 3 pages. Wow, that's impressive. So I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Get those applications in.
I know that's right. Well, my high of the week is obviously being here with my big sis and hanging out. She's going to be here for quite a while because, you know, once you get somewhere, you got to be there for at least 14 days minimum. True. So she's going to be here for quite a while, kicking it with me. I wouldn't let her go that easy, you guys. So that's really exciting. And we're going to do a lot of holiday stuff together, get into some painting, a whole bunch of things.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know if I'm ready, but I am excited. We made it to 50. Thank you, Kushmir, for shouting us out.
Yes.
I can't believe 50 episodes has happened so fast.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't either. And that's just the regular episodes. We also got some special episodes too that's not even included in this 50. So you guys, we thank you guys for joining us and watching along because the information just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Okay.
Yes, and I can't wait to get into it. Plus, it's going to be real interesting to look back, especially now what we do and what we've said. Okay, so let me just get my pen and paper out for the
right, because the shade, the shade of it all, you guys, the shade of it all. So on our first hot topic, we're going to take it to Mexico. Believe it or not, Mexico can become one of the biggest cannabis countries in the world. And ultimately, it would sandwich the U.S. in a legalized country in Canada and in Mexico. So that's pretty exciting.
That's like big. It's major. But let's be real. We say finally legalized because we've been talking about Mexico legalizing forever. I thought that was already legal, but okay. What's actually the deal? What's the real tea?
Well, you, like many activists, are waiting to hear something back. Now, they've been pushing the deadline, and it's got pushed back to December 15th. And ultimately, it would be a more of a decriminalization versus legalization at the moment. because the Supreme Court ruled that the criminalization of personal possession and cultivation of cannabis is unconstitutional way back in 2018. And at this point, they were supposed to create, frameworks. They were supposed to enact it. And ultimately, they didn't. They haven't. They're still waiting on their Senate vote. And right now, they are having some of the same issues we are having in the industry, believe it or not. Everybody's pushing for this social equity. And what does that mean?
Yeah, no, I'm joking. I know that this is a long process, but it is one of those things that remember way back when in 2018 when that happened, everybody, and as a business analyst, that was something I was getting asked a lot about. What will that mean for the U.S. cannabis economy if U.S. is actually sandwiched, like you said? But it's still, 2 years later, we haven't figured it out. We do have that ability now to maybe see that our legalization could actually be rolled out. Perhaps even faster, because the truth is they're voting on it, but it isn't still like we're rolling it out.
Right.
And there's always tweaking of the policy and the regulation even after the vote. But it is the slowest roll ever.
Honestly, it is. But when you learn about some of their things that they're trying to put into their constitution, it might be worth it. Right now it's proposing that adults 18 and older can possess and cultivate cannabis for personal use. Now they can have up to 20 plants. They cannot yield more than 480 grams. So you definitely got to break down the grams versus, because some people understand grams, but then it starts switching to ounces and pounds, and people get real confused real quick.
Even the regulators, okay?
Hello, because the legal possession is on the body is capped at 28 grams. However, it is decriminalized up to 200 grams. Now, in this bill, as far as revenue, they are expecting their cannabis tax to be at 12%.
Which is reasonable. We've seen as high as like 25, 27%. We've seen as low as 6%. So that seems to be a reasonable amount, especially since they're letting so many people participate. They may even be able to bring it down because they're letting so many people participate. Things that I'm like dumb excited about. First of all, 18 and over being able to possess and grow. Like that just makes me be like, okay, when we move into Mexico, or at least can we get some land in Mexico? Come on, son.
It's like snakes out there.
Listen, all right, fine. No Mexico. But listen, that is actually one of the most progressive. We got people still trying to fight 18 to 21 having access at all because there's a lot of what I feel like is like kind of that biased scientific research when we demonize the plant that basically talks about what it could do to the brain before 24. Yet, we've been working in the industry and we've seen really high potency medicine used on children for various levels of different debilitating diseases, and it's only enhanced them. And I don't know if I believe that, so I'm excited that people 18 and over can participate, because I do think adult, you could vote, then you should be able to do something with cannabis for yourself if you want. I also love the cultivation piece, but you're right. Everybody get the grams wrong. So it's still just basic metrics. We could be talking about flour, cannabis flour, or we could be talking about flour, the 5-pound bag flour in your house, or the 5-pound bag of sugar in your house. But grams has like a certain number of grams equals an ounce. And once you know that, you can get that exchange pretty easily. And so when they talked about the legal personal possession being 28 grams is exactly 1 ounce. Okay. And so once you know 28 grams equals an ounce, then it starts to make sense when you're saying you're getting an eighth of an ounce, and that's 3.5 grams, because an eighth of 28 grams is 3.5 grams. It becomes very easy proportional math. So yes, 28 of them. So basically, this is sounding like a lot because it's 28 grams. People probably think about their little dime bags. Oh, he could carry 28 dime bags. But reality is just 1 ounce is actually not that much flour.
No, it's not.
But then 200 grams is nearly 10 ounces, because 10 ounces would be 280 grams. So there's this, again, need for people, especially lay folks, to really reorientate reorient yourself with the real science, the real math behind these measurements. I know folks are used to saying, let me get an eighth, don't know exactly what they're ordering, but that's what it is. And so there will be a lot of implications in the legal market. This is still very progressive. The other thing I'll say, 20 plants, extremely progressive, because a lot of people are fighting for, keeping it to 4. And, in New York, those MSOs don't even want you to grow because they feel they want to be in control of what you have available to you.
Well, I definitely love it. I think it's actually probably would be considered the most progressive out of the 3 countries. I mean, we see what's happening in Canada. What's happening in America because we keep you up to date.
Yes.
And just compared to it, they are definitely making some major money cannabis moves and for their patient, because this is personal use. They didn't even get all into the business side of things.
Okay, well, I'm excited. We'll keep watching Mexico. I'm sure you'll have more tea for us later.
Yes. And so our second hot topic, I was really happy to find out about this recent topic, but I'm also curious because they don't give that much information. Central State University received a $1.3 million hemp research contract with the FDA, y'all. Now, what do you guys know about Central State University? Because I have to look it up.
You better tell us because you already know people don't know.
It is an HBCU based in Ohio. And so if you know anything about HBCUs, that's been a big thing around the president and the election. They actually, Trump, our 45th president, he basically said, hey, I'm the only one giving money to HBCUs, giving initiatives. And so now we are seeing one of the type of initiatives that they've given them.
Yeah, no, this is, first of all, a round of applause because we've been talking about disenfranchisement around HBCUs. Yes. There are so many HBCUs that do have state regulated hemp licensing. And then when hemp became legal in 2018, they've really been a little bit slow on the pickup. And then there's also been a lot of predatory practices in the way private companies have actually interacted with HBCUs. I'm also, not for nothing, he's not lying on the fact that his administration is the first one that actually has a budget for HBCUs, and the White House initiative on HBCU is an office within the White House. And, that's definitely something to be noted because that's, again, the history of HBCUs over 100 years old, many of them, is disenfranchisement and disinvestment and really just making do with what you can. And what we need to be doing as advocates, as educators, is ensuring that these institutions are actually being put on the right foot towards leading in the cannabis space. So, it's very exciting to see what they're doing. I'm definitely interested in seeing what research will come out of it. But more importantly, I know that, hemp is such a large endeavor and it can be economic development opportunities for this institution.
Yes, I definitely agree. And the contract is for 3 years. They want to better understand smokable hemp, vapable hemp, to really determine how to regulate them, which if any of some of the things they put out, they've asked for comments, and it's been a little bit off. So we're excited to see what this school finds out. I think hemp is a big deal. There's many ways you could skin a cat, and the Food Drug Administration is one. We talked about different contracts that different colleges have with like the DEA. Mm-hmm. So understanding that each administration has its own lane for understanding how to regulate it.
Yeah, and then Michael McKenzie, he gives good points. First of all, hemp has cannabis has more than 50,000 uses. They are agricultural, they are medicinal, and they are industrial. And so really what I would like for any HBCU is that they are actually taking every single one of those avenues. I'm a person that can't live without CBD oil every day. I make my own now because I've gotten into that trouble where I didn't get shipment in time and then I got really sick. So I wouldn't necessarily say CBD oil is bullshit when you actually make it well. I want the HBCUs to follow every single line. Just thinking about the over $50 billion that CBD products could just disrupt in depression, pain, and anxiety. There are 3 drugs out that make over $50 billion right now. So, it's not to be taken lightly, every aspect, but he's right. The long money is what we're doing with durable industrial goods. You can do hemp concrete. You can make a car out of hemp. Yeah. That is a really important thing. But all of those elements, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar to multi-trillion-dollar opportunities.
Yes. So I'm really excited. I thought that was really positive to bring out, especially because we don't know what we're going into these next couple of weeks. So we are trying to focus on all the goodness that is happening in our industry right now. And I would like to move on to the third hot topic, because I mean, literally, anytime there's conversation about New Jersey legalization, passing, moving, going forward, they done took it away from the state lawmakers and they done brought it to the people. And so New York is getting a little bit nervous. You know what I'm saying? They really are shaking in their boots. So recently there was an article released with the governor's advisor of New York State to basically say, you know, legalization is on the governor's mind. It will be in his budget. And even though it hasn't really worked in the last couple of years, he's really determined this 2021 kind of thing.
If you could see my face, I mean, I could see my face.
It's
like, come on, son. Like, I'm from Brooklyn and I'm tired of hearing, like, you know, when you hear something on repeat, and this has literally been on repeat every year as soon as session is about to get started, as soon as New Jersey starts talking about they're going to legalize. And in this case, it's all but foregone conclusion that New Jersey is going to legalize. New Jersey has had a popular opinion around cannabis for 5 years now, you know, maybe even longer. And finally, after getting a new governor and Governor Murphy, who ran on that platform, they are now in a position where they can legalize. Now, before I talk junk about New York, I got to talk about New Jersey. The reason, because I went to school in New Jersey, Brooklyn born, Jersey educated. So I care about that state as well. It's where I'm a registered voter. And I absolutely will be supporting the bill. But this should have also been able to be legislatively legalized as well. There's always this fight on the equity piece of it. Yeah. There's always this fight. And guess what? The fight also is some of the Johnny come lately around Black leadership in the communities, whether it's community-based organizations or churches, Black leadership in law, right? In the government. And so we are getting in our own way, but opposite of that, in the New York state, it's been Black leadership that's actually been pushing for marijuana legalization. The majority leader, Crystal Peoples-Stokes, is really the mother of the marijuana movement in New York. And what I don't love about New York, and that's why I got to call it out, it hasn't passed because the governor has been actively, in my opinion, trying to circumvent the power and the voice that her leadership for 7 years now has been, you know, talking about as it pertains to marijuana legalization. It's not going to happen without equity in New York. We've arrested more people in the country than any other state, most of which have been Black and brown. You think you're going to be able to legalize in the largest underground market in the world and not have an equity plan? Come on, son. Like, I get hot just thinking about it right now.
How does that even happen, right? So it is difficult to think about, really, honestly. Both of these states really could have done it better. I mean, I support legalization, of course, just in most general, but I mean, let's be clear. The reason why they put it on the voting ballot is, and it's not very specific. It's pretty general. They just want people. They want to answer their own question. They know the people want legalization, but again, because it's not specific, they don't even still really understand the type of legalization they're getting themselves into. So yes, we support this, but it's not perfect, and nothing's perfect. And then the ones that are perfect, nobody wants to say anything. I definitely am really struggling with some of the leaders in the Black community too that are standing in our way to a certain degree, not helping. Some are helping, some aren't, you know. So it's really, we got to bypass what they've been doing, how long they've been doing it kind of conversation, and talk about, well, what do you think about the future?
Yes. Oh, because that's what really folks who are money grab folks, that's what they want. They want you to legalize. The people voted, but then people disengage after the presidential election, right? So everybody, this is the vote everybody's going to come out for. We've already gotten more than 33% of people already voting from, just mail in and early in person. And so for New Jersey, this is that opportunity, like you said, for the people to answer the question that they already knew for the last 5 years. What happens is people disengage, and then now the regulations or policies around how they're going to regulate the industry get created. And you just got those same lobbyists there that are run by the multi-state operators or run by big pharma. And in New Jersey is definitely going to be some big pharma in the conversation. And they are now cherry picking what they think should be moved forward. It's important that if this legalizes, you need to then become extremely active. If you're Black and brown and you are working in the legacy market, or you're an entrepreneur in the legacy market, become active, hyperactive. Be about both your civic engagement as well as your community engagement. And you need to hold them to task. There's an opportunity here because the governor, he's gone on record supporting equity. There are some significant leaders, Leo Bridgewater, Jessica Gonzalez. The fact of the matter is New Jersey has some of the best equity advocates in the country, right? They're flying them out or, putting them on a Zoom to look at stuff and talk about stuff on the West Coast, because the West Coast haven't figured out equity, but East Coast's been talking about it. So we just got to hold them to task. I have no problem. I'll be flying to New Jersey a lot.
Well, you might Zoom to New Jersey.
You're right. So okay.
We just gonna say that right there. But honestly, this leads us into our main topic. And because we ripping from the headlines, throwing it back to a lot of great episodes and great facts that we can even revisit to this day, we wanted to jump right into our hot topics. And this moves us into it. Why? Because I don't know if you remember season 2, episode 9, we found out that the Northeast governors got together to talk about cannabis legalization on a little makeshift summit they created. But the experts was from Colorado. This is well before Colorado got social equity anything. And they also don't have the same climate as the Northeast. So how they even growing stuff really, I just thought the tea was funny. So I wanted to throw it back to that episode.
That was definitely a funny episode because we were both like, what? I mean, the fact of the matter is they got together and talked amongst each other. And I think it's Michael who said it, is like, you got ignorant legislators trying to craft cannabis legalization legislation. It's terrible. And in this case, it was a meeting of the minds that do not know about cannabis much. And there was only bringing experts in a market that for the last 2 years of our reporting, they've been going back to fix the stuff that they did wrong. And more recently, like you just said, until George Floyd died in front of all of us, Colorado was not even checking for equity. It was something that was a constant fight. Actually, Wanda James trying to prove why equity was needed. And now we have a program. Now there actually is a equity legislation that was passed, signed by the governor. Congratulations. We're excited. But that's what I meant by when we're doing the 50th episode and we looking back, we can show people way back when, not really that far back, right, that this wasn't a priority. And I'm glad that everybody woke up, or other people woke up in May. Welcome. And I'm hoping that we'll see some faster trajectory and it doesn't die down. But yeah, this was really one of those situations where I was like, y'all got Colorado up in here, and they didn't actually do any type of conversation with the activists, educators, leaders, thought leaders on the ground. And trust me, we were on the ground.
Right. And the gag is they really didn't even invite the leaders that are lawmakers within the cannabis industry, right? Because not all lawmakers are ignorant to the cannabis industry. We must say there are a lot of them that are like, listen, I may have voted like this way back when, but now I'm trying to learn and figure out how to vote better and become more progressive. And so they tap to cannabis activists to educate them, and cannabis experts and educators. And the governors didn't even tap those people, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It wasn't a summit. It was a kiki.
It was a kiki, a luncheon on the taxpayers' dime. They eating a fancy dancy lunch on your tax money, honey.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was I literally laugh at it. And because of that, I wanted to talk about another headline that was quite funny, was the deja vu in New York State. So after this governor's summit, because I feel like it was the end of 2019, well, during season 3, episode 5, the deja vu came back again.
Mm-hmm.
They was like, oh, New York, we're gonna legalize this year, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I see. This is why I'm so glad that we do this show, Ice, and we are on the record, because then we can look back and be like, I said this, we said that. So we are not joking when we say, will New York finally legalize? Because legitimately, we reported about feeling deja vu in 2019, because in 2018 is when he was first coming around and included it on his agenda for the first time. Prior to 2018 and 2017, he was calling it a gateway drug. So we've had an evolution of this governor, and we again, he's woke. And now welcome. And I hope that this time around, there's some real advisory happening with people who care about equity, who have expertise in cannabis equity. And now there are a lot more cannabis regulators of color. Thank God. And so we as a group, as a collective, we obviously are some of the most, formidable experts on cannabis equity, because we've implemented it. We just talked about the social equity and educational development initiatives in Portland. These are the people that he needs to be talking to.
I'm telling you, he needs to talk to somebody, because whoever he's tapping is not tapping right. And I mean, the governor advisor, he's going and doing all these interviews, because obviously once upon a time, whenever New York made a move, made a law, made a change, all the surrounding states would do it too. But now these surrounding states is like, listen, New York, you may have been popping in the 80s, but now it's 2020 and you guys are slow to move on a lot of things right now. And we're paying for it. Our community is paying for it. And so are our seats, so are our votes. So we're going to have to move a little different from y'all.
Yeah. So we got to watch New York as deja vu again. On the one hand, I don't know if we're ready yet. I don't know if New York's ready. I still haven't heard a lot of the same conversations. And when the hang up is that you don't want to give over any of the cannabis tax revenue specifically to Black and brown communities that have been, we have so much data around the devastation. It tells me that you really don't want to see that legacy market transition, and you're not interested in anything other than maybe the revenue will drive, but not the communities it will improve.
I know that's right. That is the Fendi fact. And here we are still having to deal with craziness. Another headline that I thought was really, really interesting to talk about is Nevada cannabis. For a bit, we were out there working on different projects, getting some fun in the sun when it was cold on the East Coast. And we learned about a whistleblower from their cannabis office had turned and told the FBI when they came snooping around, it wasn't me.
Well, that was a fun time in Vegas. The WeedHead Company is based in Vegas, so we're out there, and it is scary to see what had transpired over the last years. First of all, we talk a lot about what happened in the actual market. This was a market that struggled with testing, reliability, mold, infestations, and then basically we found out there was an infestation in the regulatory office. And as a person who is a cannabis regulator now, I'm even more appalled given all of the different steps and things and process and protocol as a government official that one has to follow in order to ensure that there are equitable practices and equitable access to the resources that your office provides. In fact, I probably am more judgmental, so I'm judging you. And I'm looking more at wondering what are the repercussions. So we're going to have to do a follow-up on that one, because remember, a lot of people was in trouble and being, the feds were involved, and it's like, okay, wait, was it a slap on the wrist? Because, you got some Black folks like our man who was driving to Alabama, right. That, he had a couple grams on him, a medical marijuana patient, and got 5 years sentence. So, again, we have these inconsistencies where largely white male individuals do horribly, contentious and a little bit questionable things. It borders on illegal, right? And yet there's still this like slap on the wrist, get a fine. But there's still places that up until last year, New Jersey, were still arresting Black and brown, primarily men, due to the smell. So I'm not feeling that, but I definitely want to follow up in Nevada because it's been a relatively corrupt story. You know, what's the saving grace?
I mean, there's honestly no saving grace, really. I'm still astounded. It was all a part of the season 3, episode 5. So that was one of the hot topics that we had got into, because this is also what happens when you rush legalization, right? You don't just decriminalize it and allow people to still live their lives until you figure it out. We did review a little bit something about Nevada recently in this season, and basically their board trying to get it together. Their commission board, they're trying to get it together. They're going through license by license, finding them, revoking them, but there are really no repercussions for these people that did not do their job right. And ultimately, basically, they were super biased. There was a lot of like behind the back, around the corner transactions, which is what happens in the government and why a lot of people for the government are millionaires versus the people that's not cutting corners is broke as hell.
This is, so sad. I think that I hope that we can circle back and really find out, because when they're revoking licenses, there's also on the business side people who were not, upholding integrity, acting, crazy illegal practices, and what happened with them. So again, I do feel like we have a very clear difference in the way crime and or infractions are being dealt with, and it's about time we kind of just swing the pendulum. These are the individuals who are, stealing millions and millions of dollars from investors and the like. It's a mess. Nevada's gonna have to start over.
Right. And shout out to More Blunts. He's right. A lot of times they're getting slaps on the wrist and they're just getting fined. And for some of these cannabis companies, a fine might not be a big deal. It might not make or break you, but it is a big deal when you come in from millions on a license. Which brings me to one of the hot topics that, I mean, literally, when we first started She Blaze, we were talking so much, not good stuff about MedMan, but we were, it was the Apple of cannabis. So we're going into the rise and fall of MedMan. Actually kind of happened during the She Blaze thing. And you've always said, these dudes, they get into these companies and are like, oh yeah, we're going to how high this cannabis business. And you like, that's not really how this thing here works. And so we're actually seeing it unfold during these last couple seasons of She Blaze. Now, what you gotta say?
I'm just saying,
I want to hear it.
They're the reason why I know I'm clairvoyant, or at least in the business sense, because everything that's happening is like I could go back to an episode or I could go back to where I wrote it. It's important for us to just pay attention to the tea leaves. They're a very good example of the green rush, right? As it has been in the last 5 years. And they are a perfect example of what's going to be the dinosaur soon in the industry. These really large multi-state operators, or MSOs. If I have it my way, we are definitely cutting down on how much power and authority they have, and we're already starting to see that with some other ones. I think it was Altria, who like millions and millions of dollars lost. Like, it is what it is. But this one in particular, I have to kiki at because the CEO's so arrogant on that. He is like the epitome of, cis white male privilege and audacity. I've been calling that caucasity, and mostly because I saw it on a meme. But yeah, I'm not going to mince words when it comes to them. And it's one of those things where we have it already on the record. So let's start. Where did they had a huge raise goal, and that was where we had to start the story, of course.
So that when they launched their first equity fund in 2017, and they raised like 30 mil or something like that first round, and then they goaled themselves to 250 million, and we talked about this on season 2, episode 8. This was going to be cannabis' biggest merger of it all. It was MedMan merging with Pharmacane. Now, I don't know much about Pharmacane, but I know a lot about MedMan. They were, at this time, they were everywhere in the cannabis industry. They were gold sponsorship, everything, magazines, they all over the taxis in Las Vegas and stuff like that.
Branded apparel. Right. I mean, we got branded apparel too, but it's like,
swagadocious, right? We be wearing, listen, our branded apparel don't come in every single color.
Right. And I mean, it's t-shirts, but not a jacket, a smoking jacket, an iPhone cover, like little things like that. But they spent also multiple millions of dollars on a like little video. Remember, they made a video with Jesse, what's his name? The point is they hired a black guy who talks about black issues to make it look like they cared. So it didn't really work for people who really, we're not part of the matrix. We helped develop it. And so it was like, what is this? But it was millions of dollars. They were spending money out the wazoo. Then around the same time, they're still doing this raise, but you're seeing left and right out of the C-suite, mad drama, right? People, the CFOs like, yo, no, they spend money on private jets. PJs, if you will, and all types of sweets and stuff. The people in the dispensaries not getting paid a living wage. Now you basically have a Apple like store. They call themselves that. They raised money on that. I mean, $30 million. Let's be real. Like we're that's a difficulty thing for black and brown folks who are operating in the industry. Let's not front. And meanwhile, it was raised on essentially
handshake. Hey bud.
Yes,
you're my bud.
Hey buddy, and an idea, not so much an implementation. And then as it started to roll out, I'll be honest, on the surface, things look good, right? And then that's like how you can see the bud, oh, it looks cute, and you open it, and then it you press it and it dries. I don't know what falls apart.
Can't even press it in the legalized stores, right? You doing the test jar and that's it. You can't even really touch the test jar. But this is what happens when you be buying your girlfriend Birkins with your business card.
Yes.
And trying to write it all off. All of it don't come off.
Yes, that's so true. But it's been really interesting every month for like 2018 and 2019. It was something new happening and not always good at all.
No. And so, yes, this merger died really quickly. As quickly. This is also what happens when you be announcing your merger 45 days before the signing day. Maybe y'all should pick 15 days, 10 days, it's like calling a winnable for the fat lady sing, as my dad say, in this certain way about sports. He's like, you can't call the game till it's the fat lady sing. That's what he's saying. And it's really like, you can't call the game until it's over. So 45 days before the merger was signed, y'all announcing it.
Because they wanted to be able to build a campaign around it. So a couple of things people need to know about Pharmacane. They actually had they have a license in New York. They're one of the 10 MSOs. So is MedMan. So there's a lot of drama about this acquisition, and it included Pharmacane's licenses, which were multi-state, not just New York. But what was going to happen there, because the New York basically policies say that no operator can have more than one license. And they were really trying to have both of those licenses. Meanwhile, we still have black and brown folks who aren't at all in the industry. There is no real black and brown ownership in the industry. There's a little bit here and there in acreage where you got somebody, I won't say the token, but you do have somebody you can point to, but that's the company,
Right. Right. And not to even mention, they was doing this whole long pages to different lawmakers on really restricting the licensing process in New York. So all while this happening, they making their own side deals. Well, when that thing terminated, the CFO sues MedMan. The CEO then decided to step down. Oh, and then they started closing sites left and right. I mean, literally, I remember right before we left Vegas, they had they went to rebuild the street in front of MedMan, and then that sucker had like caution tape around it. So they were doing the street, rebuilding the street, and people can't even go into your site.
Caution tape means a death has happened here. The death of the business. Sorry, I'm so.
But that has though, they did have the caution tape. It was yellow and black.
Okay? Right. I'm sorry. But the fact of the matter is, this is Okay, they announced it because they wanted to be big and bad. It was over $600 million merger, big money in cannabis. Again, tiny money at Target. I'm gonna be real. I was running $500 million businesses for Target. So at the end of the day, it's one of those things we have to put it in, perspective. But this is still big cannabis, and big cannabis has been acting a mess, and they're not ready to deal with the rest. Like MedMan, I don't want them to be our representation when we got to deal with big pharma and big big retail, like a Target and Walmart.
Right.
They would not be the best representation. They would get eaten like
y'all think Shark Tank is funny? Child, see that in real life. And so we've seen the rise and fall on MedMan, and to a certain extent you called it because I said certain extent because you don't specifically call them, but you do call a lot of it in a general sense of how it's going to happen, how it's going to crash and burn. Now they are again still struggling to raise enough finances, and we're seeing it all across the board.
But yet they still getting raises though, right? Remember, we reported on that. So that's the real like tomfoolery and ridiculousness for me, right? Is that, as a Black woman who has worked on many different projects, and raising funds is a big part of that as a strategist to be able to do what you want to do. You literally going in and 20 years of experience doing something, and these dogs, like for real, are losing hundreds of millions of dollars, and then just like that have raised another 20 million, right? It's a struggle for Black and brown folks to get that funding. That's why seed initiatives in Portland is something that I really felt was necessary. It's why the cannabis tax revenue needs to be flipped and reinvested, and some of that money being available to be able to compete, because you can't compete with somebody whose buddy can loan them 20 million right quick.
Right. And then he never have to pay it. You don't have to pay no interest. He don't have to even pay taxes on it because it's a tax loss. You know what I'm saying? President, that's why he's smart on doing his taxes. So, again, it's like, I mean, what can we do here? How do we hold their feet to the fire? And California, we actually is trying to figure that out actively. And by that, I'm saying, big cannabis, big investigations. There are California. I mean, literally the DEA was like, California, we about to, shut down all these either unregulated or regulated businesses because y'all got a cannabis problem. This is also what happens when everybody in the unregulated market claiming that they pack is from Cali. I'm just saying. That's
true. We almost putting Cali, like a target on Cali's back, but they do have an issue because there's a lot of big companies that are participating both in the legal market and the legacy market or unregulated market. The DEA is aware of that. The DEA is aware of that. Why? Because since 1979, they have had a Department of Eradication and Suppression for marijuana where they spend millions of dollars every year to ensure that they're investigating. So if any of these people have previously been in the legacy market, they know about it. If they're now in the legal market, they know about it. And that's why they're trying to subpoena all of the records of every single owner, operator in cannabis, in the California industry. And Cali is trying to block it. And, we support the block because we don't want it necessarily to go out like that. And here's why. Even though it seems like they're going after the big companies, and they will for another reason I'll tell you in a second. At the end of the day, whenever we have law enforcement involved, the DEA involved, the disproportion as to who gets impacted is still negatively so on Black and brown folks. Yeah. And so I don't wish that on anyone. And so that protection, even though it's for the big companies, protects Black and brown operators as well. And then on the real reason why they're going after it, I feel is the chess move, because we got big tobacco, big pharma, big consumer products. They all want to come in and be a part of this. And the best way to do that is to take out your competitors.
Ooh, well, you was dropping a lot of jewels on that one, and that's real facts. This is chess, not checkers, and so hold your seatbelt. Now, I remember when I first got my first cannabis experience in California, I got Cushy Punch, and I definitely, this was before they had to separate it, and you just took the whole big 100 gel strip. And I took that whole thing. First of all, I was high on my mind. I don't know what I thought I was doing, but it became one of a good edibles that we could always rely on to give us the real effect of it. Well, Cushy Punch took a major L on season 2, episode 7, where basically they had some stuff falling off the back of the truck. There were a lot of licensing issues, but more or less overproduction of products issues. And we had to talk about it because they are a California-based edible company.
Absolutely. I mean, and we also had to talk about how they wiggle out of it too, right? So Cushy Punch, I've never been a fan. She has. It makes sense. It's a different demographic because there are 15 years between us. The fact that they looked like Bubblicious bubblegum also offended me, and they've since evolved what that logo looks like, and thank God for them. Part of it is also the regulations have changed. But the falling off the back of the truck, participating, this is what I mean, in the unregulated market, but only getting fines, but people still getting arrested, people still being criminalized, people of color primarily, is where I had the problem. But then what we saw when we started digging is that basically that any fine went against Cushy Punch, the brand itself, but the business behind it was another entity altogether. It was someone who was licensing that Cushy Punch brand. And so that's why even understanding the business deal, that group knew what they were doing, and that group is still able to participate and license other brands in other markets, and they probably are. So even though Cushy Punch in Cali may have been impacted, the group itself who were making the money, making those decisions, still get to move forward. It, to me, again, doesn't smell right, doesn't seem right, it doesn't feel right. And I think that that's the problem with some of the regulatory frameworks that have been set up.
Absolutely. And that moves us to one of your favorites, since you didn't like Cushy Punch that much. Lowell had a big investigation. Now, this woman loves her some Lowell products. I remember the first time she sent me a picture, she was like, look, it's so cute. It comes like this. It looks like that. It has matches. She don't even use the matches. That.
And about the look, okay? It was well branded.
Yes.
Well done.
It was so well branded that they branded themselves into a big hole, because they had quite a huge investigation, and it all came rumbling at around the same time. So season 3, episode 1, we open our season opener with the Lowell investigation. One, because it all happened over the holiday, so everyone was kind of taking a break and we didn't really know what's happening. 2, it was coming off the heels of being the first social lounge in LA. And then 3, they were looking into starting up different operations in different areas, like we saw them in Nevada, for example, during MJ BizCon.
Yeah, I was sad. I mean, I still don't really understand what the investigation was fully about, other than the usual like poor business maneuvers, and the folks in charge at the top were the ones being named. What I can't fault them on is that they always had great flower. I care about what cannabis flower feels like, smells like, tastes like, all of that. And they had a great experience for like the true smoker, if you will. And listen, it wasn't fully girly or whatever. It was definitely West Coast, a little bit more, what is it? Just a very special cultivation of it. It felt that craft. Thank you. That's the right word. And that's what I enjoyed about it. And not because it was like a brand that spoke to me. I don't even think I was their target.
No. Well, no, it had like a goat head or something. No, we were not necessarily a fan of the branding. It's the branding ideas we really liked. I definitely felt like it was way more hipster. We're a lot more glamorous. But if we were to glamorize their packaging, because it's all white labeled anyway, this is the base. This is where we're starting off from. That's really what it was. She was a super fan, but you did really like their flower too. Yes. So it was a plus, but part of it was that they were being sued because, again, they are overproducing product and it doesn't fall under their licensing. Also, there was something that had a gap license. Their license ended and they still produce product. And when your license lapse, right, because that's basically what it is, you have to wait until you pay your licensing again and get your approval for that day. Yeah. You can't produce anything, even if the flower is hanging, growing, drying, you can't do nada. And so they still produce that product. They produce more products than what their licenses required. And then the Lowell Cafe had to break because there are two different ownerships in it. So the cafe wanted to break from Lowell because they were about to be listed in the license, even though they had nothing to do with that license that lapsed or was overproducing.
Yeah, because they were all part of that Lowell umbrella. And this also just really quickly gave us an opportunity to illuminate the interesting conglomerate ways in which these businesses operate. We know, for example, like Curaleaf is the largest cannabis company in the world, but that's like also 8-9 different companies all come together. So in this case, especially in the United States, where you basically have to be a new company in every single state, you have this connectivity and conglomerization that happens. And Lowell Cafe was about to be part of that conglomerate. In fact, they had announced it. It was a big deal. Like you said, people were already attending. It was all with the Lowell rustic craft branding. And I think they wound up doing something like the new cafe. It was whatever it was. The original cannabis cafe. Yeah, basically, the creative team was on a holiday, clearly. They wasn't prepared because they were like, we're going to be the original cafe. And I was like,
that don't make no sense because OG stands for Ocean Grown.
Yeah. So.
But yes. Well, our last headline, I want to leave us on a high note talking about that. I really enjoy is Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is one of those stories that, you know, it really is close to the heart. I feel like they're related, kind of like how we're related, but they're a mom and pop, so to speak, cannabis company that's doing some major big things. So season 2, episode 9, we talked about Charlotte's Web's hemp pen. That's a big deal when you are trying to get approval of the FDA. They're giving you the runaround, but then you turn around and get your dang patent, and a lot of people are using your particular strain to make their products.
Yeah, no, I'm very proud of Charlotte's Web. They're an example of what we call, the true, from an advocacy side, their reason for getting into the industry or business was truly from a perspective of a young girl who's no longer with us. She actually passed from something that felt like COVID-related issues. We reported on it earlier in the pandemic. Charlotte Fiji, she was 13. And when this all started, she was really just a little thing. She was like a little toddler. She was featured on Sanjay Gupta's documentary around medical marijuana for CNN, and it showed how CBD, specifically CBD oil, really helped her as far as her issues with Dravet's, which is like another form of an epileptic syndrome. And so it kept her from having seizures, and she was having like, many per day. And now it made her functional. One of the things that Charlotte's Web did is in its growth pattern and its trajectory, it really started to focus on the genetics because, at first you're growing marijuana, and marijuana has CBD. You can grow specific strains of marijuana that have high CBD, right? And so that it can have a high yield when you're trying to extract it. But as they start to move and hemp really started to take off in 2018, it was clearly very smart for them to say, let's look at the hemp cultivar or strains that we know are available in the United States. And most of them are still hovering between 12 and 20% of CBD as a content base. And their patented strain is like that 30%.
Yeah.
So like I said, I make my own CBD oil, and I was using like the shake, if you will, and the shake doesn't have a lot of percentage. So I was guesstimating that I had about 10 to 12% CBD. I mean, I had to use a whole ounce just to make 250 milliliters of something not so potent. It was about 28 milligrams per milliliter. And y'all might want to get my book, How to Succeed in the Cannabis Industry, if you're confused at all right now. But that's how well you need to know about the science behind it. But basically, I had to use that much because it was a very low potency. If I had a 30%, level of CBD in the flower, it would have been much less that I could have done to create my oil. So it makes a difference, especially if you're a manufacturer.
Absolutely. And shout out to More Blunts, because he had to break down the whole like phenotyping breakdown of like cultivators really are hunting. So they are growing until they get the pheno. And it takes years to even do that kind of thing. So thank goodness for Charlotte's Web for being smart and playing chess with the chess players too, because ultimately that was a chess move. It was right after Epidiolex went and got approved by the FDA. But how you get approved by FDA using our strain, you know? And so they put a patent on that, and as a result, they ended up getting a credit line, a multi-million-dollar credit line, which is pretty unheard of in our industry for those kind of startups. So Charlotte's Web was a great way to end our 50th episode, ripped from the headline.
Yes. Well, we really bring the tea, girl.
Yes.
I mean, well, first of all, we got to give Ice a shout out just because, you know, one, executive producer, this is your creation. I'm excited to just be a part of this here, but you always bring those details, and we've been talking about it for a while. It looks good to just look back and be like, dang, we really covered all of that. I'm just excited about what the next 50 episodes are going to be like. Okay.
Yay.
See me always on the work, and she like, can we take a break? It's our vacation time now. We got 50.
I mean, duh. I am a true young millennial. Like, life is not meant to be all this work.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad we are putting in that work because it's actually helping you guys. It's helping us as well. We are more informed advocates as a result of all of this research that you do. Let's be real. And to be able to throw it back to good references for legislators in my own job day to day. Listen, I am mad. If this is work, I'm good.
I know that's right. Well, do you have any upcoming initiatives that you're working on or doing this week?
Well, again, just got to give a shout out again to the Social Equity and Educational Development Initiatives, or SEED initiatives. We have our 2021 SEED Grant Fund application available, and it's due. Round 1 is due October 30th. That's this Friday coming up next, and by 5 p.m. PST. Basically, you know, we're looking for everyone who is interested in really supporting and giving back to Black and Indigenous people of color and the communities that have been most impacted by cannabis prohibition. If you're BIPOC and you own something or you have an idea, please apply. If you're a woman, same as well. And the truth of the matter is that, you know, I'm expecting to have a much larger group of applications. We have $800,000. And if you're interested in working with the city of Portland as well, we also have another $200K that we're dedicated to technical assistance that will be really chosen from vendors that are minority, women, and business enterprises specifically. So we are using that full $1 million to give back into the community in different types of ways. You can give grants, but you can also give established businesses a contract with government. And if they have a contract with one municipality, because we know you can get a contract with another municipality. So it's a good setup. I'm very excited. I'm happy about the work we're doing, and I want to shout out my team. They're doing an amazing job. You know, we do it remotely, but we're hustling.
I know that's right. And on a personal note, we'll be on a panel this week coming up for women's entrepreneurs.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That's true. Yes, we're doing so much.
Yeah, so keep following us along. Follow Dasheeda. She usually posts it first. And let us know. So tell people where they can follow you.
Oh, you're going to get me at Dasheeda Dawson on IG and Twitter, or you can find me at theweedhead.com, or you can find me where you're probably looking, somewhere in the comments for M for MM, or on Dasheeda Dawson, the Weedhead on Facebook.
Okay, and make sure you follow She Blaze on IG, Facebook, and you can listen to us, watch us anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, WeTube. Shit, we everywhere.
We are, and that's the exciting part. Like I said, we got 50 episodes in. We got 50 more to do.
I know.
Y'all have a great week, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.